A wall of plants can drop your room temperature by 5 degrees. No air conditioner, no electricity bill, just leaves. Sounds fake, right? It's not. It's a real method. Millions of people in Japan use it every single summer. And after a nuclear disaster forced the whole country to save power, this simple trick became a national obsession. Today I'm going to show you exactly how it works, the science behind it, the plants that work best, and how you could build one yourself, even on a tiny apartment balcony. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some people say a wall of vines can cool a room better than a fancy piece of glass. Let's get into it. So what is this thing? A green curtain is simple. You grow fast-climbing vines up a net. You put that net outside your window or across your balcony. The plants grow up, spread out, and form a thick wall of leaves. In Japanese, it's called Midori no katen, green curtain. Simple name for a simple idea. But here's the twist. This isn't some new eco-trend. It's old, really old. Go back 400 years, to the Edo period. That's old Tokyo. Back then, the city ran like a machine. They recycled human waste as fertilizer. They had almost no waste at all. And to survive brutal summers, people hung reed screens outside their windows. These were called sudare and yoshizu, thin bamboo strips, woven together, hung outside the window to block the sun. These screens go back even further. As far as the 8th century, fancy versions called misu were used by the imperial court. You can even find them mentioned in The Tale of Genji, an 11th century novel. So people have been blocking the sun with screens for over 1,000 years. The green curtain takes that same idea, same logic. Block the sun outside the window before it ever touches the glass. But instead of dead bamboo, you use living plants. And this wasn't the only trick people used back then. There's uchimizu, the old practice of splashing water on the street to cool the air through evaporation. There's also kakigori, shaved ice, which people were already eating back in the Heian period. You can find it mentioned in the Pillow Book, a book written over 1,000 years ago. So staying cool without machines isn't new for Japan. It's basically a national skill. Here's where it gets interesting. March 2011, a massive earthquake hits Japan, then a tsunami, then the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Power plants shut down. Electricity became scarce almost overnight. The government told everyone to save power. This became known as setsuden, power saving. Air conditioners are power hungry, so people needed a way to stay cool without draining the grid. Enter the green curtain. It cost almost nothing. No electricity, just a net, some soil, and seeds. One group in Tokyo, called the Green Curtain Supporters, raised about 21 million yen. They sent volunteers to install these living curtains across 20,000 temporary homes. These were prefab shelters for disaster survivors. Thin walls, no insulation. People inside were at real risk of heat stroke. The green curtains gave them shade, real, measurable relief. Without power. And it wasn't just disaster housing. Whole cities jumped on board. Fukuoka City now runs a program that pays cash prizes for the best green curtains. They even have a green advice center, where you can get free help growing yours. Okay, so it clearly works. But why? Let's talk science. Don't worry, I'll keep it simple. Most heat in your room doesn't come from the air. It comes through your window. Sunlight hits the glass. That light turns into heat inside, and it gets trapped. That's the greenhouse effect. Same thing that happens in a parked car. A mature green curtain blocks about 80% of that incoming solar radiation. 80%, before it even reaches your glass. Compare that to other methods. Traditional reed screens block 50 to 60%. Fancy modern reflective glass blocks around 55%. The living wall of plants beats both. And the thicker the leaves, the better it works. Scientists measure this using something called leaf area index. More leaf coverage, less sunlight getting through. It's that simple. Now here's something most people don't think about. Air temperature isn't the only thing that makes you feel hot. There's also radiant heat. That's heat coming straight off hot surfaces. Think of standing near a hot parking lot in summer. You feel that heat, even if the air itself isn't that hot. Concrete balconies do the same thing. Direct sun can heat a balcony floor past 45 degrees Celsius. That surface then radiates heat into your apartment, even after the sun goes down. A green curtain blocks that too. It shades the wall. It shades the floor. Researchers actually measured this using heat flux. Without shade, heat flow was over 84 watts per square meter. With a green curtain, it dropped to about 13. That's a massive drop, just from shade. Scientists actually have a name for the how hot it feels number. It's called mean radiant temperature, or MRT. Behind a living green curtain, MRT can drop by around 30 degrees Celsius during peak daytime hours. That's roughly a 40% reduction compared to an unshaded balcony. There are other comfort indexes too, like WBGT, which is used to judge heat stroke risk, and SET, which combines temperature, humidity, and airflow into one comfort score. Across almost every one of these measurements, the green curtain comes out ahead. Here's the part that makes this method different from just hanging a screen. Plants sweat. Sort of. It's called evapotranspiration. Plants pull water up from their roots. That water evaporates out through tiny pores in the leaves, and evaporation eats up heat energy. That's basic physics. When liquid turns to gas, it pulls heat from its surroundings, so the air right next to the leaves gets cooler. When you open a window behind a green curtain, that cooler air drifts inside. It's a living, breathing form of air conditioning. No plug required. And unlike a metal blind, leaves don't get hot in the sun. Because they're constantly cooling themselves through this process, leaf temperatures often stay close to the outside air, sometimes even below it. At night, they cool down even more, often about 1 degree colder than the surrounding air. Let's talk real numbers. Because this isn't just theory. One Tokyo real estate company measured balcony surfaces in direct sun. Temperature, over 50 degrees Celsius. Behind a green curtain, between 32 and 38 degrees. That's an 18-degree difference on the surface alone. Indoors, the effect is smaller, but still huge. Rooms behind a green curtain were measured 2 to 5 degrees cooler than unshaded rooms. In one university test during peak August heat, the difference hit 5.5 degrees between two identical rooms. And it saves real money. In a Yokohama apartment study over 48 days, households with green curtains ran their air conditioners 40% less than households without one. Other tests found power savings over 20%, sometimes averaging around 30% total. Less air conditioning, lower bills, less strain on the power grid. Now, I want to be honest with you. This method isn't perfect. A thick wall of leaves blocks sunlight, but it also blocks wind. One researcher, Professor Kenichi Narita, studied this at an elementary school in Tokyo. He found that wind speed through an open window dropped by half when a green curtain was in the way. Less wind means less natural cooling on your skin. So does that cancel out the benefit? He ran the numbers. Turns out, no. The cooling from blocking the sun's radiation was about twice as strong as the loss from blocked wind. Net result? The room still felt significantly cooler overall. So yes, there's a trade-off, but the shade wins by a wide margin. Okay, let's get practical. If you want to try this, which plants should you actually grow? Number 1, and by far the most popular, bitter gourd, called Goya in Japanese. This plant loves heat. It grows fast. It resists disease. And it forms a thick, tight wall of leaves quickly. Bonus? You can eat it. Goya is used in dishes like Goya chanpuru, a stir-fry from Okinawa, so you get shade and dinner from the same plant. Second option, morning glory, or Asagao. This one has deep roots in Japanese culture, poetry, and art. It grows fast, produces gorgeous blue and purple flowers, and naturally dies back once the weather cools. Which is perfect. You get shade in summer, and sunlight again in winter, without lifting a finger. Third option, loofah, or hechima. This one has huge leaves. Bigger leaves means more shade. And great for windows that face brutal afternoon sun. And after the season ends, you can dry the fruit and turn it into an actual bath sponge. Other options include cucumber, passion fruit, and chayote, but these come with trade-offs. Cucumbers need tons of water. Passion fruit has smaller leaves, so less shade. Chayote is great late in the season, since it keeps growing into October. One more thing worth knowing, Goya and cucumber belong to the same plant family, and that family doesn't like being grown in the same soil year after year. Diseases build up in the dirt over time. So if you're growing these every summer, plan on replacing your soil each year. It sounds like extra work, but it's a small price for a plant that can cut your cooling bill. So how do you actually set this up on your own balcony? First, the container. This is where most people mess up. They use a pot that's way too small. These vines grow big root systems. A single plant needs at least 12 to 15 liters of soil. That's roughly a 30 by 30 centimeter pot. 2 plants sharing space? You'll want at least 25 liters. Next, the soil. You want a mix that holds water, but still drains well. A common recipe is about 60 to 70% red clay soil mixed with 30 to 40% leaf compost, plus some fertilizer. And here's a key detail. These plants hate acidic soil. So gardeners add limestone to balance the pH before planting. Now, the structure. You don't just let vines grow straight up. You want horizontal spread to cover the whole net. Gardeners do this through a technique called pinching or tekishin. Once the main vine grows 5 to 7 leaves, you snip off the tip. This forces the plant to grow side branches instead of just going up. Repeat that a few times, and you get a dense, woven wall of leaves. Finally, watering. This is critical. In peak summer, water twice a day, morning and evening. Never water in the middle of the day. The water sitting in your planter can heat up under direct sun. That can literally cook the roots and kill the plant. Now, living in an apartment building means you're not just gardening for yourself. You've got neighbors. And a badly managed green curtain can cause real problems. Dead leaves and soil can blow onto lower balconies. That can dirty someone's laundry or clog shared drains. Bugs are another issue. Any garden attracts pests like aphids and spider mites. Left unmanaged, they can spread to your neighbor's plants too. And vines grow. If you don't prune them, they can climb into the balcony above you or wrap around shared pipes. There's also a safety rule that matters a lot. Balconies are emergency escape routes during fires or earthquakes. Never let your net or plants block escape hatches or emergency partition walls. That's not just etiquette. That's safety. On the plus side, all that dense foliage does something people rarely expect. It muffles sound. A thick wall of leaves can help block street noise before it reaches your window. So along with the cooling, you might get a slightly quieter apartment too. Here's something most people never consider: typhoons. A fully grown green curtain is basically a giant sail. If a typhoon hits while it's still standing tall, it can rip down gutters, break windows, or send heavy planters flying off the balcony. So growers in Japan prepare for this. Many use tension rods instead of permanent anchors, so the whole structure can come down fast. Before a typhoon hits, they do something called jibai. That means laying the whole curtain flat on the balcony floor, plants and all. It kills the wind resistance instantly and protects the vines. Heavy planters get tied down or weighed with sandbags. Smaller pots get moved indoors entirely. It's a small extra step, but it matters. Skip it, and a beautiful green curtain can turn into a hazard for the whole building in a single storm. Here's something I found surprising. Not everyone grows a green curtain for the same reason. Japan's Ministry of the Environment surveyed people about this. Younger people, under 30, mostly cared about the cooling effect, lower electricity bills, a cooler room, very practical. But older people, in their 50s, 60s and beyond, had a totally different answer. Over 69% said their main reason was simply enjoying growing plants. Many talked about feeling healed by having greenery around them. That feeling got stronger the older people were. So this isn't just a cooling trick. For a lot of people, it's therapy, a small patch of nature in a concrete city. One survey even found many older growers valued the harvest itself, the fruit and flowers, just as much as the shade. And there's an even bigger story here. After disasters like the 2011 tsunami and the 2024 Noto earthquake, survivors were placed in temporary housing. Green curtains gave them more than shade. Neighbors started watering and tending the plants together. It gave displaced communities a shared task. A reason to talk to each other again. A small green wall helped rebuild something bigger than temperature control. So let's bring this all together. A green curtain is a wall of climbing plants grown outside your window. It blocks up to 80% of solar radiation. It can drop indoor temperatures by up to 5 degrees. It can cut air conditioner use by 40%. It comes from centuries-old Japanese tradition. It exploded in popularity after the Fukushima disaster forced the country to save power. And today, it's used everywhere from private balconies to disaster relief housing. It's not perfect. It blocks some wind. It needs real maintenance. And you need to prepare it for typhoon season. But for the cost of some seeds, soil, and a net, it delivers real, measured cooling. No electricity, no bill, just leaves doing what leaves do best. If you made it this far, you clearly care about smart, low-cost ways to beat the heat. So here's what I want you to do. If this video taught you something new, hit subscribe. I break down ideas like this every week, real methods, backed by real research, not just trends. And drop a comment. Tell me if you'd actually try building a green curtain on your own balcony. I read every one. If you found this useful, share it with someone who complains about their electricity bill every summer. One small wall of vines won't fix climate change, but it might fix your summer, and that's a pretty good place to start. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.